Hi all, we're going to work on assembling a manometer today. The easiest way to get a manometer is obviously to order it from Henderson's, but if that's not something that's available to you, you can make one yourself. So in order to do that, you're going to need some supplies. And these are the supplies that we use. We're going to start with the plastic tubing. You need at least 20 feet of this clear plastic tubing. It must be clear and it's got to be that soft plastic. We use one that is 5/16 inch inner diameter and 7/16 inch outer diameter. And so that's your tubing. You'll need some elbows, 5/16 inch elbows, at least 2 of these, please. And you're going to need a connector. This is a reducer that goes between 5/16 and 1/4 inch. The reason we did that is because that small end has to fit into a rubber stopper. So you'll need 1 rubber stopper. I have 2 here because they're 2 different sizes. So the size 1 is a little bit larger than the size 0. Choose the one that's going to fit the top of your drone. And it does need to have a hole in it to go all the way through so the air can go through. You can order these with the hole. If you cannot get one with a hole, you can actually freeze the stopper and then use a drill to drill your hole down the center. If you cannot find a reducer here, you can get one that's 1/4 inch on both ends and then go ahead and put some hemp around the one end to fit it into your tubing on the other end. We also are going to need some zip ties. We use 6 white zip ties and 3 of different colors. We use red, blue, and green, but it's up to you. Use whatever ones you can find. These are standard 4-inch zip ties. You're also going to need a few other tools. You need a measuring tape at least 10 feet long, a pair of scissors. We use some blue painter's tape to actually mark the lengths on the floor. A rag works really well when you're trying to put in your couplings. Silicone grease can also really help those couplings go into the tubing easier. And a pair of wire cutters to cut your zip ties, which make them more flush and not as sharp. So those are your supplies. Once you've assembled those, go on to the next part. The first thing we need to do is measure out the lengths for our tubing. So Gracie uses an edge at the corner of the wall to start hers, and then she's going to measure along the floor and actually use pieces of tape to mark the lengths of her tubing. So the first piece is going to be 70 inches. Then she's going to go ahead and measure again, making her second length, which will be a total of 71 inches. And then she'll measure her third, being 8'3" or 99 inches. Now she likes to do these in a row. You could measure all from the same location, but you'll see why it makes sense to do this, because once you lay it out once, all you have to do is cut, and then you don't have to go back and retape it down. What we need to do first is actually measure the length of the tubing. Gracie has now taped down her end of the tube at her start point, and then she's going to lay out the tubing along the entire length that she has just measured and marked. That way all she has to do is make sure that the tubing is nice and straight and then cut at her tape points. So she's going to be careful to make sure that she pulls it so that it's straight but not stretched, because obviously it'll come untaped and it won't be the correct length. She's going to cut it at her 3 points. That length now is going to be her 8'3" length. Second one is going to be her 71-inch length, and that original one that was taped to the floor is now her 70-inch piece of tubing. Okay, so now we have our 3 pieces of tubing laid out on the table, and they are in a specific order. So the shortest piece is in the middle, the 71-inch piece is closest to Gracie, and the other 8'3" piece is on the outer end falling off the end of the table. So the next thing that gets done is the elbows. So Gracie's going to use a little bit of that silicone grease, and she's going to put it on the fittings so that it makes them easier to go into the tubing. So just put a little bit of grease, you can see, on each of those. Doesn't take a whole lot. is where your rag comes in handy. And where do those fittings go?
They'll go connecting the 8'3" and the 71" together, and the 70" and the 71" together.
So she's putting the elbow into the two small pieces on the bottom end, by the way. This is the bottom end of the manometer. And then at the top end, putting it on the 71" piece and the longest piece. Next, she's actually going to put the coupling onto the cork. And this is one of the hardest parts, so the silicone grease is really helpful here because that hole in the cork is really quite small. And this is where a rag may come in handy to press that in. Can we see that piece? There we go. So we have the cork into the small end of that coupling. Now she's going to take the other end of it, and it's going to go into the end of the longest piece of tubing. There we go. What's next?
So then you'll take 4 of your white zip ties and put them on the end of your 70 and 71", approximately 8 inches apart.
Are you going to straighten out your coupling at the end? There we go. And how tight are you putting these on?
Tight enough that they won't slip, but it won't pinch the tube so that it will stop any of the water that will flow through it.
So again, she is connecting the 70" and the 71" piece of tubing with 4 white zip ties, starting at the bottom about 8 inches apart. Then what comes next?
Then you'll take your blue zip tie that will stand for your water line, and you're going to put it 35 inches from the end.
And how tight is that one going?
About the same as the white ones. Doesn't move, but doesn't pinch the watering. Then you'll put another white one about 6 inches above the water line. And
she is moving her way up the manometer, by the way.
Then you'll put on your green one. After that, you want to make this one a bit looser so that you can slide it, but it won't slip. And then you'll put your red one above the green one. Same goes for this one, so that it will slide, but not slip. And then finally, you'll connect all 3 of the tubing together at the top with white.
And then she's going to go back through with the wire cutters and just clip off those little ends so that they're not sticking out. Again, you can use scissors for this. It's just wire cutters happen to work better. So now that she's trimmed those off, where's the top end? So here's the top end with the open tube that you're going to put your water in. You're going to hang that end up so that the other end will go lower. You'll be able to fill the water to the blue line or to the blue zip tie there. And then the long end with the cork will go into the top of your drone. And when you blow up your pipes, you'll be able to see the pressure exhibited by the water moving up to hopefully around one of those green or red zip ties.